There are a few new fishing regulations anglers should be aware of starting April 1st. In this week's program, we're visiting with Fisheries Division Chief Greg Power to go over all the details. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Greg, how often does the new fishing guide or new fishing proclamation come out, and what is it?
Yeah, the fishing proclamation is the legal document. The fishing guide is what the anglers have access to and often, refer to. That's done every 2 years. North Dakota's a little unique. In most states, it's an annual deal. We used to be that way up into the early 90s, but for the last 30 years now, we've been to a 2-year fishing proclamation, fishing guide, and the new one, effective, is April 1st of 2024.
Okay, and a lot of changes this year or not?
No, there aren't. And that's kind of a goal of ours, is not to change it a lot. We recognize anglers like things straightforward and simple, and we do too. So that's what we kind of drive towards. Unless there's really a really good biological reasoning, we don't try to change a lot. So, and that was the case this go around. I bet you we didn't have more than less than a dozen changes, the most of them very minor. And in the end, I think this new fishing proclamation or fishing guide, we've actually created more fishing opportunity out there. So we're going to see some, I think, good things for anglers that do some of the non-traditional things.
Greg, let's talk about some of these changes. There's a number of lakes where you can now use live bait where you couldn't before.
Correct. The bread and butter bait out there is a fathead minnow, and then perhaps night crawlers. We've always had dozens of lakes at one time. It was illegal to use minnows or legal live bait fish in. Reason being, they were trout lakes. There's a lot of more hook mortality. There's different reasons. Some we were concerned about illegal bait getting into these lakes. So if we go back again 30 years to the early 90s, I believe we're close to 36 lakes that had special bait restrictions on. Over time now, we're down to, I think we're in that 10, 11 range. So we knocked off a number of lakes that we think anglers can now use fathead minnows in particular. So again, increase a little opportunity, a little less restrictions there.
There's some more opportunities for bow fishing and spearing.
And there's a fair amount of bow fishing that goes on for rough fish in the past. We've had a number of requests for a number of years from some of the members of that fraternity. And so going forward, we are going to allow the take of channel catfish in addition to rough fish on the Missouri River system only. And we'll see where it goes, but we don't have any real concerns. It's come a long, long ways, that outdoor activity, bow fishing. We feel good about just a little more opportunity with channel catfish, which is a very underutilized game fish out there.
And when you're dark house spearfishing, you can now use bow equipment.
Correct. That was the other thing we did too, is that moving forward next winter, dark house spearfishing is also going to include archery, which means they can now legally take pike, northern pike. We don't expect to see a lot of change. I mean, there's some real challenges to that, but it's definitely sporting activity, and we've had requests for that, and so I think we feel good about that allowance. So yeah, starting next winter, you're going to see that. They will need to register, no different than spearing, but it's something that we're looking forward to see how it shakes out.
Okay, and another change, individuals that are trapping their own bait. There's some changes there as well.
Right, that's kind of a sign of the times here in the last 5 to 10 years. There's a certain number of the anglers out there that are chasing big walleye, and they like big bait, big live bait. And crick chubs are that gateway to catching big fish oftentimes. And still, the vast majority of people buy their bait at a retail bait vendor. It's good, clean bait, and we're good with that. But there are some now that are chasing crick chubs with these because they're expensive and they're hard to come by. And the downside of that is we also, started in the last couple of years, we've seen some violations where others have come and either taken the bait out of somebody's minnow trap or just thrown them up in shore and let stuff die. And unfortunately, we really didn't address that with as a violation. It was not illegal to do that. So moving forward, starting this year again, anybody that traps their own bait, have the minnow trap out there, one, need to mark their minnow trap so, you know, enforcement, anybody knows who it belongs to. And then now there is a penalty that goes with tampering with somebody else's minnow traps.
And another change is the limit on channel catfish for some areas of the state.
Correct, correct. Well, we've had a limit in the past for channel cats east of Highway 1, which, you know, more or less was the Red River cat fishery. Nothing changes there. The limit of 5 remains. That's nothing new. But west of Highway 1, which is generally the Missouri River system, there was no limit. So moving forward, against effective April 1st, we're going to have a daily limit of 20 and a possession limit of 40. There will be a limit on them. And part of it is just to bring more attention to the catfish. People generally like catfish. They don't have problems. They're not like a carp or anything. But we believe that putting a limit on it, well, one, it standardizes with all our game fish now will have a limit. But also I think it'll bring more attention. People are a little more, what's that about? I'm going to go try to, you know, something, for example, like the tail race, the Garrison Dam tail race can be a really good spot for catching them because we have plenty out there. So that's something to, you know, just pay attention to in the future.
Greg, where's the best place for anglers to go view the new fishing guide?
Oh, it's the same place as it's been for some time. One is the website, the department's website. The fishing guide is available there and our regulations. But also here in the last couple of years now we have the department app. And all the information that's on the website is essentially on that app. And the fishing guide certainly will be there. And you download it and it's there no matter, you don't need to have service or anything like that. You have that. And what we've seen actually is that the phone has taken over the hard copy. Go back in time maybe 10 to 15 years ago, we'd order about 200,000 fishing guides, paper guides, that would go out to all the vendors in the state. This year there's only 70,000 of them, and many of those will likely get returned, won't even get used, and we have more anglers. So what's happened is, just like everything else in society, people are using their phones and get all the information off the phone. But for those old timers such as myself, a paper copy is still going to be available this year.
With the lack of snow, lack of moisture, what's the water levels in most of these lakes looking like? Yeah,
that's a downside. No, I just said the bright side is we expect very little winter kill, but there's obviously not going to be much for runoff, which is important. I mean, spring runoff is so important to recharge our fishing lakes. The good news is, though, we went into winter in relatively good shape. I mean, we could always use a little bit more, but we're in good shape water level wise, so no short-term problem. But you know, the biggest nightmare for fishery biologists and anglers should be is the biggest threat to our fisheries out there is a long-term drought. And we just don't know, are we, you know, as dry as it's been, are we going that direction? That's North Dakota. You know, let's talk again in 6 months. It might be a whole different story. So.
Fishing has been incredible statewide for the last few years, probably the last decade. How are things looking this year? Yeah,
you know, again, I keep saying it, it's hard to imagine it getting better. Last year, we really do believe throughout the state as a whole, you know, including the big three and all these new lakes and even our old reservoirs, Hart Buttes and stuff of that nature. It was probably the best walleye fishing year ever in North Dakota. And again, the good news is we're going into 2024 open water season. We're in great shape. You know, March, of course, fishing begins with, I mean, it's always been that way, the river fishing Bismarck South on upper Inawahi and the Missouri River, and that population's in decent shape. It was a great bite last fall. Actually, in December, they're still boat fishing and catching a lot of walleye. That should, you know, take off where it was. Sakakawia's walleye population's in great shape, so is Devil's Lake. So there's a lot to look forward to.
And we have a year-round fishing season.
Yep.
However, you need to get a new license by April 1st.
Right, yeah. That's so the fishing season, as far as your license goes, runs from April 1st through March 31st of the following year. So yes, please get out. You're good in March, But you getting close to April, you plan to fish, get a new fishing license.
And you can start purchasing those licenses March 15th.
March 15th, they go online for resident license, yes.
Where can an angler go to experiment with different lakes?
That was a very common question we have. Where do we even start? Where do we go? A couple years ago, the department updated its webpage. So I absolutely suggest anybody that's new to fishing, and even people that aren't new to fishing, they do use it. Go to our website. There's a page there within the fishery tab, where to fish. And you can isolate any lake you want, know what species are present, access all the questions. Hopefully most of the questions will be answered right there.
A lot of great information, Greg. Thank you.
You bet.